I get those goosebumps every time you come around, yeah. You ease my mind, you make everything feel fine. Worry about those comments, I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too dumb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time I need the Heimlich, throw that to the side, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. When you're not around, when you throw that to the side, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. 713, you could've swear it went down riding. Why they on me? Why they on me? I'm flying, sipping low key. I'm sipping low key and flying. I get those goosebumps every time I'm around, yeah. You ease my mind, you make everything feel fine. Worry about those comments, I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too dumb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time I need the Heimlich, throw that.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back. Loaded Mag NUFC. We're here. The Fight for Europe show is here, and we already have some of the panel with us, ready to get down to it. And look, welcome to everyone in the chat. I hope you are all well. Make sure you're doing the good old housekeeping. Clicking those likes, and if you're new to the channel, subscribing as well. And look, I've got the main man with me, Mr. Daz Shocks. How you doing, Daz? How's your Sunday been, mate?
Yeah, all good, Pete. Yeah, my wife was sick yesterday, but apart from that, all good. Looking forward to this now. Get down to the battle. Might get tasty. We've got a few new guys on the panel as well, so interesting to hear their backstories as well as everything else. So bring it on.
Definitely. And we have got a few new ones on the panel. We've got from Wolves Fancast, we've got Tom Gibson. How you doing, Tom? You okay?
Yeah, I'm all good, mate. Thank you for having me on. And like I say, I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, definitely. And we've got the West Ham fan. We've got Big Dave in the house, fresh from the women's game today. How are you doing, fella?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me. Been looking forward to this.
Top man. And returning guest we've got Adam from Together and BHA. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How about you? Thanks for having me back.
Pleasure. Always great to have you on. And
I like being here.
What I like about it is you just say how it is. Even if it doesn't others.
It's not going to be that pretty this time either. I'll tell you that.
Interesting. But no, look, we've got Don, and hopefully Dan United will be joining us at some point. They're just on their way. But already comments and opinions and various different things coming in already. So we'll crack on. And Adam, I'm going to start with you. I'm going to start with Brighton. It's been an interesting season for you. Obviously, you've been juggling European football in the Europa League. You've got, De Zerbi, who's been renowned as a top level manager. Lost Casado, but you've been paid handsomely for him. Just in your opinion, where you're at this season, are you happy with your season so far as a Brighton fan? What are your thoughts, mate?
Yeah, this is a really weird season because I think you always have to manage your expectations when this is a first year going into European competition. But I would ask you the same question: how do you feel about your season? Because it's the same season. We've had the same parallel, right? Started off looking pretty good. Oh, hold on, how's this going to shape up? Fancy doing something here, and then it just sort of injuries get the better of you. That all those additional cup competitions, the squad depth isn't there, and it starts to fall away. And that's kind of where we're at. So it's hard, right? Because if you follow Brighton for a little while, you're still on cloud nine. This is still way beyond expectations that the club has had for a few years. But when you look at it in terms of what happened last season and the pieces that you have in place for this season, that's when you start to think about, you know what, God, it would have been nice if this happened, or if this guy didn't get injured, or if we'd have just done this differently. It's been a weird, frustrating season.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know about you. Daz, I'll come to you just because De Zerbi's obviously been talked about as an elite manager at times, and it just hasn't hasn't gone the way that I sort of expected it for Brighton. Like, have you been surprised of how sort of like inconsistent they've been over the course of the season?
Yeah, like Adam makes a good point. It's been up and down like our season. I just got to comment on our season first. Our season was brilliant up the win against Paris Saint-Germain at home, and then up until the Mbappe penalty in the last couple of seconds in Paris, downhill from there, and it's continued to go down. A few up and down moments in the roller coaster, but it's been an absolute disaster, injury after injury. But back to Brighton, yeah, there's a lot of players that haven't kicked on like they did last season. Like, okay, spoiler alert, I'm from Ireland, so all eyes on Evan Ferguson. But and he even missed a penalty yesterday for Ireland against Matt Sells, our old keeper. He saved it. I couldn't believe that. But no, and he turns up against us, of course, and scores a hat-trick, but he hasn't done much this season, which is surprising.
He hasn't scored for a long time. He started out well, and he hasn't scored for a lot of football now. It's something's in his head, and you see that with the penalty, right? He's not quite all there. I feel bad for him. He needed that goal, and of course, it didn't come.
Yeah. He needs a cheap transfer deal, I think. We'll take him. Take him any day of the week. Stop scoring against us in there.
It's I don't think there's no doubt about his talent and what his potential is, but we've had a few cases of that this season where we've got like, okay, is Ferguson going to kick on and really do something special here? And it hasn't happened. João Pedro stepped up for us and was like the main man, especially in Europe. Like the guy was top scorer in Europe for a little while, injured, and then it just suddenly went like that. And we lost Matoma for injury. We talked about Caicedo leaving at the last season. Don't forget Alexis McAllister. We lost the core of our like central midfield pivot. Didn't have enough time to really invest and replace them. We've had injuries to left back as well, to Estupinian. It's been a tricky one. And when you get those injuries, right, and you've seen this, the same for you. Like I said, you need those other players to really step up and find form. And we've had injuries, and then the form's gone as well from the other players who you needed to rely on. I think, case in point, it comes down to someone like Ansu Fati, who was like pretty much the poster boy for this club's like kicking on for this season. And it's been, I tell you what, I can't think of a more disappointing transfer as a Brighton fan. And we've had a few.
Yeah. It's been an interesting one with Brighton. Don, welcome in, Don, in the house.
Happy me, man.
Yeah, no, pleasure to have you back. And look, this is your opportunity, Tom, Dave, Don. This is your opportunity to have your say on Brighton. Like, have Brighton had the season that you expected? Do you think that they're in the mix for Europe in terms? Do you think they're actually capable of getting Europe? Look, Tom, I'll come to you first. What are your thoughts on Brighton in general?
I love the way Brighton work. I think, especially off the pitch, I love the way they set up their academy, and De Zerbi's fantastic manager. I think the way he is, some of the football he's played, he's top class. I know there was rumours of like him being like the next Man City manager or something like that. I think they're good enough to get into Europe, to be fair, but I think kind of similar with us, it depends on injuries as well. And when you do get those injuries and form drops, then it's very tough and it's pretty cutthroat. So I think they've got enough talent, but I think it depends on the injuries. If they have a couple more injuries or people are out for longer, I think that will run their race pretty much.
Dave, are you thinking Brighton are a potential like challenger for your position? I'll bring the table up because it's here. I mean, the table is extremely tight. With all of our teams here, you look at that. You got West Ham in 7th, Brighton in 8th, Wolves, Newcastle, Chelsea. There's only what 5 or 6 points separating us. Like, it's crazy at the moment. But like, Dave, what are your thoughts on Brighton from what you've seen this season?
I mean, I've seen very little of them. I'll be honest. Obviously, I watched them at I think our first away game or our second away game of the season. We came to the Amex and we finally won for the first time against Brighton in the Premier League in about 10 or 11 attempts. I think it was at that point.
Yeah.
I think the difference between us and Brighton, from the outside looking in, is that we both sold our key midfielders for 100 million plus, but I think we replaced Rice. I'm not sure Brighton necessarily replaced Caicedo.
Definitely haven't. There's no one, and we're seeing that, right? It's just not been the season we hope. And I think the biggest thing is now we're out of every other competition. You'd have the hope that, okay, great, we'll just focus on the Premier League. We have got statistically the toughest run-in for the rest of the season. We have to play Man City, Liverpool, Arsenal,
I've got
Chelsea.
it here, bro.
You got it all up. I'm ruining it.
It was a pain.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie.
It ain't good.
I've looked at all of yours fixtures. I've got them all up ready to talk about, and I looked at Brighton's, and I was like, "Oh, like
yeah."
Not.
I need to go to that stadium. I'm gonna make sure I'm there as well, Adam. I'm gonna make sure.
yeah, you can enjoy it. Yeah. Here's the thing though, like at home this year, it's weird. The last 2 years we've been awful at home, and the Amex is basically in a place that everyone goes for a day out and enjoys themselves. We've been great away. This year, the Amex has been a really, really like solid home ground for us, like performance-wise, and away we've been absolutely diabolical. But I just don't know what Brighton's going to show up, because it's funny, right? And no, Tom, Dave, you seem like lovely guys. God, if I have to watch Brighton play West Ham or Wolves ever again, I swear it's just the dullest thing I've ever seen. Just 70% possession while you guys sit 10 at the back. But we hate playing teams like that, right? We want to play those other teams that are going to come out and attack us, because that's the kind of football that De Zerbi wants to play, right? They push onto you, you have these quick moves, and you get out and score. So maybe just maybe something crazy happens and we show up against some of these big teams.
Yeah, I think you're definitely gonna need it. Like I say, don't get any easier. First game back after the international break, you're going to a trip to Anfield. You got Arsenal coming up there, Man City, Villa, us. You come to St James's Park, and then you end it against Man United. And this is the thing, is that all of those teams that I've mentioned, they're all fighting for something. They're all fighting something. Okay, Burnley are as well. Yeah, they're fighting to stay in the league. Brentford are kind of like mid-range. So are Bournemouth at the moment, not necessarily fighting for anything direct. It's Don, I'll come to you. That's a tough fixture list.
No, it is. And you know what? We've actually played Brighton twice already. Because we played them in the Carabao Cup. Yep. Remember, that was Cole Palmer's first start for us, actually. So we played them there. We beat them. But listen, it wasn't an easy game. It was not an easy game. And one thing for me, Pete, you know, I want De Zerbi. Yeah, that's my number one choice. And
well, you've taken enough. What else do you want? Are you going to be taking the seats out of the
soul?
Come on.
I know. We keep taking everyone from you, man. We keep taking everyone from you. But it is where it is, isn't it? But for me, like, listen, with Brighton, I think what's really impressed me about them is they don't change how they play, regardless of who comes in, right? And that means that De Zerbi is obviously giving clear instructions, and everyone knows what they need to be doing on the pitch, right? But in terms of this season in itself, I'm not really surprised. I think Brighton where are they right now? They're 8th in the table. There's still about 10 games to go. You know, it's their first time in Europe, having to manage more games during the week. They've lost key players in Caicedo and McAllister. I know Brighton replaced well and they scout well, but you still need to get to the certain level of a McAllister and a Caicedo. These guys aren't there yet. I look at some of your guys. What's his name? The right winger that you got.
Adingra.
Not in Ingra. The guy that you got is kind of small, South American, I think he is.
And is it Enciso?
Enciso's injured, isn't he?
Julio Enciso's just come back from injury. You've got you might be thinking of Buonanotte, the Argentinian guy.
Buonanotte. Yeah, I remember he scored against us at the Bridge, if you remember, when we played you lot. And we beat you 3-1 when we got.
Was that really good goal? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah. He cut in, and he put it in the corner. Right, I remember that because I was at the game. Yeah. But what it is, you guys were still doing your stuff, but in that final third, there just wasn't that end quality. Do you know what I mean? And I remember Mitoma was playing well. We had Disasi on the pitch. We had to take him off. Remember, we got a red card with Gallagher during that game. It was a good game. But what it is for them is that they're lacking that quality that they had last year in their strongest 11. Obviously, injuries have affected them. Injuries have affected us all. But Brighton, they're working with lesser quality than the big boys. Do you know what I mean? And it's,
Yeah,
and
we
it's
need
fit.
someone like Sterling up there to really put it away. You know, that's the problem.
Oh, Sterling. I don't know
Yeah, we
about
could
that.
deal with
Listen,
it. We could do with one of the
I want
big
him gone.
players. You know.
I can't even lie to them. I want him gone, but I wouldn't recommend Sterling, man. I think it's time for Saudi. That guy. I said the other day he needs to go learn some Arabic. Yeah, it's time for him to go. You know what I'm saying? But honestly, I think Brighton right now, I'm not really surprised, man. They're mid-table, they're 8th. There's still a lot of games to go. I know it's hard fixtures, but I kind of expected this, man. You lot lost some big players.
Yeah. You're right, though. The biggest point, I think, when you sell those players, you get about a year or two to rebuild. You see that with sides like, and this is maybe a bad example now, but like Southampton, they did this for years and years, right? You sell off these players, then you bring in more from the academy, you sign more. This is just a year too soon for Brighton. Like, you've got these young players that are they're doing what they can, but we're playing 18, 19, 20-year-olds. Yes, they're really promising, but you're right. There's a ceiling there for now.
Not there yet, yeah.
It's going to be interesting. Like, before we move on to the next club, Adam, I'm going to come to you. Give your final position prediction. Where do you think you're going to finish in the league this season, mate? 10 games to go.
Yeah, I'd love to come in and give it the big one, but the fixtures are too hard, and I'm nervous about the sides below us. I would love a top 10 finish, as in I think that would be top half. Jobs done this season. It's been a hard season. I think if we slip into misery places like where Chelsea are right now, that's where you start to get disappointed. That's when you go, this was a bad season.
See, what you're actually saying is you just don't want to finish below Chelsea. That's what you're saying.
No, no, because then they'll come in and start vulturing us even more. Like, yeah, who else they're gonna have? De Zerbi. They'll try and take Fatty, even though they probably won't even realize he's on loan. Just whatever they can pull, the copper out the walls. Yeah,
We'll see. But no, okay, top 10 finish. We'll leave you with that, and we'll see how your prediction comes along. But let's go to West Ham. West Ham. I've just seen Dave's reaction when I said West Ham, and he's just like, "Oh my god, why me? Why?" But look, like we were talking off there, me, yourself, Daz, Tom, about your manager. Look, the first point I'll start with: you got a European trophy last summer. You sold Declan Rice, 100 million, as you've mentioned before, and you've invested. And in my opinion, you've invested well. You sit in 7th in the table this season. You're in the next round of the Europa League. Assess your season for me, mate. Like, are you happy? Is there certain people that you want out of the club? I don't know. I'm just getting your opinion on that. What
yeah, I mean, in terms of people out, the first port of call would be David Moyes. I wouldn't be too upset if Karen Brady found alternative employment. Perhaps David Sullivan might want to sell his shares to someone with a bit of money. To be honest, our season's been. I can sum it up like this, right? We got a plan A, right? Plan A is you give the team, as Adam said, you let them have 70% possession and you counter on the break. And we went to Arsenal, we beat them in the Emirates. We went to Spurs, beat them at White Hart Lane, or whatever they want to call it now. 1-0 down at half time. They were pinned us in our penalty box. Second half, those little balls over the top started to find a bit of space, and Moyes' ball works. The problem is you go and play Burnley. We drew. We come back from 2-0 down. You shouldn't be 2-0 down at Burnley if you've got any kind of ambition. No one around in this discussion is going to say they're going to be happy if their team goes 2-0 down at home at Burnley. No. We drew at Sheffield United. I mean, that's 4 points that you've dropped. We went out the FA Cup after a replay at Bristol City. And that was a disastrous, the home game. Paquetá was probably carrying a knock going into it, but he got an injury that put him out for a couple of months. Bowen got an injury that put him out for a month. That was probably a bit of a turning point, and we ended up on a 8 or 9 game winless run. I think we're still only on 3 wins this calendar year. And that was Brentford, Everton, and Freiburg in the Europa League.
Wow.
It's great. It's great being in the Europa League. It's lovely having those foreign trips. I think it's the end of the road. I don't see us getting past Leverkusen. we're missing Alvarez for the first leg, and he's one of them players. Obviously, the front three, Bowen, Paquetá, and Kudus, they catch the eye because they give you the flair, they score the goals, they get the assists, they do the eye-catching stuff.
Yeah.
Alvarez is that player that you notice him when he's not there. You know, he's the one that breaks up play, holds a defence. I mean, Calvin Phillips has just been an absolute disaster of a signing. He's not fit, big wages. You know, he's been an absolute liability, and we're going to be relying on him. I don't think we come away from Leverkusen having conceded less than. I mean, they beat us 4-0 in pre-season. I don't know it's a pre-season game, but it was pre-season for them as much as it was pre-season for us, and they still just ran through us like, you know, like they were levels above.
Did you not play them at home first?
No, we got to Leverkusen.
They've not lost this season, have they?
No, they're unbeaten.
Yeah.
All comps.
Yes. It's not great, is it?
Wow.
No, people keep telling me Karabakh scored twice against them in each game. So, you know, they're there to be got at, but I suspect Karabakh might have played with slightly more attacking intent than David Moyes ever will.
To be fair, there was a point in the second half of that round that they looked like the Leverkusen were going out, but they just switched gears and turned it on. West Ham are an interesting one. Look, Daz, I'll come to you. Do you think Dave's kind of assessment of West Ham? Do you think maybe he's been a bit too harsh on his own club? Do you think they're in a good position? Considering what the position they've been in, with losing their captain, their talisman in the summer, and being able to kind of regroup, like Dave mentioned earlier, that sort of Brighton haven't. Like, how do you assess West Ham season, Daz?
Yeah, well, losing Declan Rice, this spent well with that. They've won the Conference League, getting a European trophy was something that we'd love. We've talked about. That's why you convinced me, Pete, that getting into the Conference League would be of a benefit to us for someone that hasn't won a trophy for a long time. I know there's a lot of discontent on David Moyes, and I hear Moyes ball being mentioned. So then I think back to Bruce Ball, and yeah, I sympathise with anyone then that has ball at the end of their manager's surname. So I know what that feels like. But look, they have played a game. Looking at the table, they have played a game more in 29 games played. But I'm looking forward to the next one because we're at that game at St James's Park on next Saturday, at Saturday morning, 12:30. So looking forward to that. And if we were to win that one, we're just a point behind West Ham then. So it makes it very tasty. It's not going to be easy though. I always have love Paquetá, and every time he plays against us, he ups it a level as well. He scored against us there recently, and playing against Bruno, it's always gets tasty as well. So looking forward to the game, but it's not going to be an easy one. But on the season as a whole, they're doing okay. Like they're in the mix, and it's not easy combining trying to play in Europe and domestic competitions as well. So. I don't see an awful lot there's to complain about it as for West Ham, but I get that you're not happy with the style, and maybe it is at the end of the road for David Moyes, and you should get someone to move into position. I know as well there's talk of the guy they brought in to recruit all the players, a favourite of another guy that comes on this show, Dan Lawless. Yeah, he probably wants to. Yes, that's the one.
Yeah,
that's the one. Yeah.
He's sowed the seeds at Leverkusen. If he gets to decide the next manager, I'll be delighted, because if we leave it to David Sullivan, we're going to see a Tony Pulis, Steve Bruce type.
Oh, God.
Wouldn't wish that on anyone.
No. We've been there for sure. I'm going to come back to Lucas Paquetá talk in just a second, but Tom, West Ham, do you think they're going to make Europe this season? They're sitting 7th at the moment. So of all the, I'm kind of like sidestepping Man United here. I think Man United could be caught, but I just think they're just so lucky. Like, they can play the worst football ever and they can just still get results. So like, I would love to say all of us around the panel that we can catch Man United, because realistically we can, but you just know there's going to be some fluke result that comes out of nowhere where you'd expect a loss, they get a win, and it just takes them over the line. So going back to the point, Tom, West Ham at the top of the kind of this battle here, 7th place. Are they, in your opinion, are they good enough to stay there?
I think it depends on a lot of form. I was talking to my mate who's a West Ham fan. I asked him a similar question, and he said to me, our problem is we're consistently inconsistent. So he says, like, they'll turn up one week, like they beat us 3-0. They beat us 3-0, like battered us. Like it was like a different Wolves team. You know what I mean? So like we was like took back. Like I thought we would have played a good game. I think they're a tough side to play, but I think a lot of the stuff with Moyes and whatnot. But Dave, I wanted to ask you as well. I mean, obviously, you know, you've had the European trophy and whatnot, and like you just say, Pete, you 7th at the minute, so you are like top of this battle. So, what more do you need? Like, what more do you want from Moyes?
Fundamentally, we go to football for entertainment. Yeah, I mean, like the Conference League was good, but it was great. But that came on the back of a season where we finished 14th. You know, there was we had to sit for a lot of rubbish last season. The thing with Moyes, and I'll sum it up in a game, right? We reached the Carabao Cup quarter-final at Anfield, right? That's 2 days off work by the time you get back at like, you know, I mean, I didn't get back in time to start my shift, let alone, you know. So it's 2 days off work. You travel up there, we get beat 5-1. You get off the coach and it's like a who's who of the reserves. And you think you've reached the cup quarter-final just to throw it away. Like, you know, Fulham went there and gave it a go. You know, I think everyone else trying to, if you reach, obviously Chelsea reached the final, you know, took Liverpool to penalties, wasn't it, from memory? Yeah. So, you know, like it's not good enough as a fan when you're throwing games, and also the way he keeps baiting us. It's constantly, you know, like he come out and it was a quote he gave us where he's like, "Oh, the fans might want a manager who excites them more, but the one in the current seat wins more." We're on an 8-game winless run at the point he made that comment. The man's self-awareness doesn't exist.
That quote really annoyed me. Do you know what it is though? Because if this manager carries on doing what he's doing, which he will, he's not going to change. This is David Moyes. This is how he plays, right? You're just going to lose all your key players, and they're going to go to teams that actually want to attack. Your Paquetas, your Bowens, even Kudus, he could leave because he wanted to come Chelsea. Like he accepted the contract. But we lowballed them because we was focusing on Caicedo.
Weren't we all signing Kudus? I thought we were about to sign him.
No.
They looked at him as well.
No.
Yeah, well, of course, we were looking at him. So Chelsea were like, hold on.
That didn't happen because you guys didn't want to add a release clause. So that move broke down. But with us, his agent actually came out and said he accepted the contract at Chelsea, but Chelsea lowballed because they were focusing on Caicedo or whatever it was, right? So you're just going to end up losing these players. What players is Moyes going to be able to attract to that point? And then it's going to be like, okay, let's sack him. They might as well sack him now. And bring in a manager that's more, you know, front thinking. For me, he didn't do well at my club, but I think there was a lot of circumstances that he couldn't manage. Graham Potter, go bring him in because at least he's not going to have a low block all the time. He's going to have something a little bit balanced because our defensive record last season wasn't bad, you know. And going forward, it was our attackers that kept missing chances. So I think that you want a forward-thinking manager like that because West Ham are not the West Ham of old that used to get relegated every other season. Do you know what I'm saying? You lot are trying to kick on now, but this manager, regardless of where he is, when you watch what's going on and the players that you've got, it's not acceptable. It's really not. You can't be having guys like this playing that type of football, man. Come on, man. You know what I mean? It's really frustrating to see. And I'm sure, Dave, obviously you're a big West Ham fan and you would never want your team to lose. But I bet deep down it feels like, is that what it's going to take for us to lose games for this guy, for them to finally wake up and say, get him out? You know what I mean?
I've got a feeling he's gone in the season because he came out at one point as well and said, "Oh, you know, I've got a contract offer on the table. It's up to me whether I sign it, but I'll decide at the end of the season." And that kind of tells me that he's being pushed. That, you know, because it's not really in his. Allardyce did the same thing when Allardyce went. We let Allardyce run his contract down, and Allardyce for ages beforehand kept coming out sounding like it was up to him whether he was going to sign or not. So I think at the end of the season he's gone. I agree. It's a divisive issue, but you probably find about 70% of West Ham fans would say, yeah, let's get rid of him. Certainly at the end of the season. Some will say, well, we're still in Europe and you've got to keep him because you might.
Why did it take it so long though? Because you sacked him before. You brought him back.
Yeah, we bought him on a. What happened was we got rid of him on a 6-month. We had him on a 6-month contract after Village to keep us up. We then got rid of him at the end of the season, bought in Pellegrini, and had a year and a half Pellegrini where for a year it was okay, and then for 6 months we just fell off a cliff and we're in big relegation trouble. So they got boys back to bring us out of relegation. And to be fair, the job he's done has been great, right? He kept us up. He's taken us away from the, we've not really been, although I say that we spent part of last season in relegation trouble, but for the bulk of his reign, we've not been in a dogfight, and we've had some great European days. But you've got to recognise sometimes the signs are there where the turn's coming, or the turn has come, really. The 7th is a bit of a false position if you look at, the games we've played, the fact that everyone around us seems to have games in hand and is within a point or two. Obviously we go to Newcastle Saturday, we got Wolves Saturday week. I think we've got Spurs in between. So, in a week's time or 2 weeks' time we have this conversation, we're not 7th. A week after that, we go to Leverkusen and get drubbed. You're talking about not being in Europe. So,
there's your fixtures, mate.
Here's the misery.
Yeah,
they came out the bridge for that game as well, man, because they beat us when we played them away.
Yeah.
Enzo missed the penalty just before half time.
Fulham beat us 5-0 at Craven Cottage. I mean, that's just brought back another. That was the week before we went to Anfield in the Cup. So that's bringing back miserable memories. Palace is one of them places we never do well. They're a bit of a bogey team. We lost 4-3, I think, there last year.
That, you know what? Those next 4 games are not. They're tough games. They're tough games. Obviously, St. James's Park, we'll always try and make it a difficult game for any team. Spurs, they're going to want retribution after what you did at their ground. You talked about that before. Yeah. Wolves, we're going to talk about.
They're going to want retribution.
There you go. Fulham are just a team that you just don't know what Fulham are going to turn up. They'll either be outstanding or they'll be absolutely shocking. I mean, you talked about Palace, but this is what kind of worries me for you guys is that after Palace, look at that. Liverpool, Chelsea, obviously Luton, again, you don't know what team's going to turn up, but then finishing the season at City. If you're in a position where this is tight, this league's tight, and everyone's fighting out for that win last game of the season, it's not really the place you want to be going to because they're going to be desperate for points at the Etihad. Tough.
Yeah, that's not an easy. I've got a feeling the most winnable game we've got there is Spurs, though. Weirdly, I just think Moyes' ball is set up against Ange ball. It's like
everything's going to be played in the park.
Snakes can't kill mongooses because of their thick skins, but otherwise mongooses are pretty tame creatures. That's just how I see this run going. Yeah, I look at that. You look at that run. You think realistically, we might pick up another 9-10 points. But that's not going to be enough.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. Look, Don, you've already had a little bit of your opinion, but I was going to let the Southern boys have their say. The Brightons and the Chelseas. What do you make of? I tell you what do you make of that fixture list? Because that is not easy. But the other point that I wanted to make is Lucas Paqueta. Because he seems to be on fire at the moment. He looks a top player. And I'm not going to ask this to Dave because probably not the question to ask him. But do you think he's going to be at West Ham next season?
I can answer that. He's got an £85 million release clause and Man City want him.
He would have left this season if it wasn't for the gambling, innit? So, yeah, I think he's gone.
Yeah, he would.
Yeah.
I think he's gone, man. I think he's definitely gone. He needs to be playing for one of the top 6 sides.
He's quality,
definitely.
Yeah. He has everything, man. Like flair on the ball, creativity, the dribbling. You know what I'm saying? Like he's press resistant. He's tall as well. quite physical. I didn't realize how tall he was, man. I mean, until one of my friends actually met him because he done a job at his house for his internet and whatnot. And my friend's not short; he's 6 foot, and he was standing next to Paqueta with boots on, and Paqueta was taller than him, bro. I said, "Whoa, this guy's tall, man." But yeah, he's good. He's a good player. I like him, man.
It'd be good if he didn't try and like do Bellingham's ACL yesterday, but
he was moving like
side to him. Yeah,
I'm taking him in a heartbeat, man. Like deep down, I'm just hoping somehow. I know it's expensive, but this is just the hope in me. Hopium, innit? I'm just hoping.
I thought you said he needs to go to a top 6 side, so you're out.
Have some respect, man. Have some respect.
Back to West Ham. Like Dave, I completely agree with you. Like we watch football because you want to enjoy it, and I think West Ham are a team where you can say Moyes is a great manager, and West Ham are playing way above where they should be, and that means that's fantastic. Unless you have to watch them play. And then you're like, hold on, this is awful. And that's pretty much it, right? You can't argue with the results he's got. You can't argue with last season. You can't argue with all that. But it's just horrible to watch. So I don't blame you guys. I'd be so sick of having him here. And you know, I think the other guys are right. All these players are going to leave regardless because they're just not going to want to play in that system.
Absolutely. Two last points I just want to make on, boys. Number one is when we was discussing Brighton, everyone was saying, you know, how like they rate De Zerbi. Nobody's saying this about David Moyes. Nobody's saying, you know, like Liverpool will take De Zerbi as their next manager. No one at Liverpool's going, David Moyes could do a job. None of Man United's going, well, we ought to send Harg out, but we'll have David Moyes back.
Yeah, exactly.
He's not in the discussion. I mean,
they don't want to watch their team. Imagine them playing Moyes ball. Imagine that at Liverpool going from Klopp to that.
Exactly. It'd be grim. And the second point I want to make is, you know, we quite happily pride ourselves, the Academy of Football, when we've got a T-shirt range to sell in the club shop. Last year, we've done the under-18s did the League and Cup double, won the FA Youth Cup, won their league. This year, the under-21s, I think, are second in Premier League 2, and the under-18s are top of their league in the South. So we've got all these talented youngsters, and like he only plays them like for 4. George Urphy got 5 minutes when we're 5-0 up against Freiburg in the Europa League. Otherwise, you don't see him. And it's like we get Danny Ings, who for almost the entirety of his West Ham reign, he looked all right when he came against Burnley. I'll give him that. He looked all right against Sheffield United. But for the bulk of his reign, his time here hasn't done anything. You've got Aaron Cresswell, who's been a great servant in decline. The squad depth below the first 11 is poor. Yeah, these players aren't match fit. They're not motivated. They're not interested. And that's down to David Moyes because you can't manage a squad. But then we're giving minutes to first-team players who get nothing from it. When we've got an academy full of young, very promising, very attacking players. Well, I say very attacking, but some very good attacking players in there. Certainly people you'd rather see come on to try and change a game than seeing your backup right back playing left wing. And God knows, I mean, Ben Johnson's been a half-decent player for us, but he's never been a left winger in his life. Yeah. And we're just stagnating and wasting players' careers, and that's on David Moyes, and that's not good enough. If you can't identify young players, and you can't when they're doing so well in the, I mean, we're not asking him to find a diamond in the rough. We're asking him to find a diamond in a jewelry store, and he still can't do it.
You got a young striker who I don't think he signed a new deal or hadn't way back when.
Obama.
Yeah, but he had some real potential. He'd come from your academy as well, and he just isn't playing him. And I think it's partly that of what you've just said. It's because he's not being shown a pathway into the first team and into the team. So I think I don't know what his situation is now, but I remember Lawless he'd been on before, and he was talking about that from Newcastle, West Ham perspective when we're talking about the game against Newcastle. So yeah, it's a weird situation. But from your perspective, where do you think you're going to finish this season? What position?
I'm going to be optimistic and say 10th. That's about as good as I think I can hope for.
Are we all just going to fight for 10th? This is actually the fight.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Hey, it means that we've got a chance, Daz. Hey,
yeah, I'm delighted with the fixture list so far. But keep
sorry,
going,
boys. Listen, I can't finish down there again. I know you man are used to that type of. Not me, man. Nah. This is like winning the lottery and losing it all, man. Is what it feels like.
But we'll definitely see. I think you finish higher than 10th. I think West Ham will finish higher than 10th. They've got a good one of the top front lines in the Premier League this season. I think you've got enough to kind of power yourselves into a decent position. Whether you finish in Europe or not, that I'm not going to lie, that fixture did surprise me with the amount of big games that you've got still to play. And that could mean that you potentially drop out. But Daz, I think there's a couple of questions in the chat.
There's some great questions. Great questions, Pete. And you're kind of taking some as we're going through. So I'm going to go to one that I really liked. I know that the chat liked it as well. So this one, we'll go around the house on this. And I know we haven't focused in on Chelsea or Wolves yet, but I'm going to start with Tom on this. And we'll go around the house. Question: does everyone on the panel think their managers will be at their clubs next season? What are you thinking, Tom? Gary O'Neill?
Yeah, definitely. And there was rumours that we're offering him a new contract, which he fully deserves. He's at the moment he's one of the lowest paid. He's done exceptionally well. He's done better than what I thought he'd do. So I think he deserves it. He deserves a better wage, and I think he'll be here for some years, hopefully.
Cool. Tom. I'm going to add a bit onto this question as well, and I'm going to go to Don next. Do you think your manager Poch will be there next season? And would you take any of our managers in place of Poch?
Yeah, it's a funny one, man. I think if he wins the FA Cup, I think on the technicality he'll stay because the owners want him to get Europe. So obviously, if we win the FA Cup, we'll get Europa League. We'll probably get a little bit of time, and then maybe just get sacked at the start of the season if it carries on, right? But me personally, I don't think even if he wins it, he should stay. I think he should get sacked regardless. You know, same sort of thing as what Dave was saying earlier about West Ham. We're 11th right now. I know we're in the final and whatnot, but this manager himself, he hasn't been good enough. I don't trust him with any players, any of his talent ID, any of his decision making. I've lost all trust with the guy. Like there's no way of turning me around right now. The only way he can actually make me want to keep him for next season is if we go on a winning streak and we're performing well and we get into into top 6, into Europe through the league comfortably as well. Like, I can see a big change because he's going to have a lot of players coming back now. I know we haven't gone into Chelsea section yet, but he's got a few players coming back. So he should hopefully have enough to have like a final push. But to answer your question, it all depends on what happens with the FA Cup, in my opinion. I think if he wins that, he'll probably stay. If he doesn't, he might just get sacked. And I want De Zerbi. That's my number one now. I want De Zerbi. I don't think he's got much of a plan B. I think off the ball, I'm a bit scared. You know, we might get battered here and there because he doesn't drop his principles. I haven't seen really much of the other side in terms of defending, but in terms of just attacking and the players that we've got, the Caicedos, he's worked with Mudryk before, he's worked with Levi Colwill before. I think the players that we have suit his style of football. So even if we're going to go into games and concede, we should be outscoring teams, in my opinion. Do you know what I mean? So that's how I kind of look at it.
Interesting.
Cheers, Don. I'll go to you. I'll add another bit onto the question. So, question that's on screen: would you take any of our managers? And as De Zerbi is on his way to Chelsea, according to Don, would you take Potter or Poch?
God, no. So I think De Zerbi goes. Yeah, I think De Zerbi is gone in this summer. I think it's one of those things where he was a bit slighted by the club in January. Like, he's been pushing hard on transfers, really hard. He's very ambitious. You're not like, depending on where he goes, he's not exactly like a dream for the chairman or whatnot. He'll say what he wants to say in press conferences. He'll do what he wants. He'll piss players off. Like, he's forced players out the club. Like, Robert Sanchez is a good example of that. Trossard was sidelined as well and got his move to Arsenal, but he was completely frozen out. That's the kind of guy he is. And he hasn't been quite like content with what our transfer business has been this year. I also think it's one of those years where there are not going to be this many tier 1 jobs on the table every year. Like, if you think about what's available come the end of the season, you've got the Barcelona job, you've got the Bayern Munich job, you've got the Liverpool job, You've potentially got Chelsea. You've potentially got Man United. Like there's a bunch of these big jobs on offer. The big thing has been about De Zerbi's like goal in the future is he's probably going to want to go back and go to one of the big Italian clubs. Like I think that will be some point in his future. There's actually been news out literally an hour ago from a pretty respected Italian journalist about supposedly there's been direct contact between Bayern Munich and Roberto De Zerbi, and he's intrigued about the idea. We would probably end up getting about 20 million from any club that comes in and tries to poach him, because he's obviously under contract until June of 2026. But I think he goes. I'd be really upset about that because you don't find many De Zerbis. Would I take any other manager that from the teams here? With all due respect, no. The Poch is I don't remember the lot. When did Poch actually do anything? He's not done anything for years. Like he had a season and 2 seasons with Spurs where they were okay, great.
He's still stuck in the days of where he thinks football's all about pressing, and you don't need tactics, you don't need coaching. As if most teams don't press. You know, Arsenal press, Man United press, you know, Newcastle press. You know, and he's trying to get players like Enzo and that running about like Gallagher's, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, just reached the end of his.
You don't want this guy at Brighton. You don't want him at Brighton.
No, it's like managers. It's like Mourinho and stuff. You're like, you were great in that particular phase of football, and now it's moved on, and that's okay. But like, it's time for new thoughts, new voices, new ideas. You know, I think Eddie Howe. Yeah, I'd be interested to see what you actually think of him. Like he's been good, and there's been some ups and there's been some downs. I wouldn't touch Gary O'Neill or David Moyes with a 10. I would rather the players manage themselves than have David Moyes come in. And I think Gary O'Neill is sort of, I know he's younger, so it's like, oh, Gary O'Neill, cool. He's come in and he's done a great job with Wolves. He's sort of a David Moyes light. It's the same setup. Sit back. You've got a couple of Brazilians that run about up top. Wonderful. There we go. That's great. That's not the football we want.
Nice.
Then down the marker.
Like all the other clubs, eh?
Yeah, I'm just being honest. Like, I'd rather take a chance on some random manager that no one's barely ever heard of.
Lallana,
plays
man.
Nice
Give it Lallana,
you know?
Give Lallana the job. You know?
Lallana will be a first team coach at Brighton in the coming years. Like he's already like the go-to guy for De Zerbi on that team.
Yeah, I think Lallana would be good, and then bring Mwepu. Tell Mwepu come through as well, and then you know he can manage.
They did actually give him some kind of job a little while back, but you know there's James Milner sat there as well, right? He's only probably got a year left in him too. As Danny Welbeck has been a great servant for the club, he's probably got about a year left in him too. So there's lots of like promising players there that know the club and would probably have a decent head on their shoulders. But who knows with players at this point, right? We've got no idea whether they make good managers. We've seen that with your Gerrards and your Lampards, you know quite well. It doesn't mean jack shit, does it?
Not just like Brighton to bring in someone we've never heard of and turn out to be a superstar, even in the manager terms. So interesting. We'll see what happens there. Dave, we'll go to you. So we already know that you're not a big fan of Dave Moyes.
No.
Do you want him there? Do you think he'll be there in the summer? And if he's gone, who would you want to replace him?
My head says he's probably gone. My heart says, please God go. In response to, I would quite happily take any of your managers right now if David Moyes is the alternative. Who do I think? I'll be honest, I'm quite happy, given the current situation Bayer Leverkusen find themselves in, for us just to go to Stein and go, look, whatever you did that worked in Leverkusen, please just do it now. You pick whoever you want. But I'll be honest, I'm secretly sold on the idea of Danny Welbeck as player manager.
Danny Welbeck, I love Danny Welbeck. I really do. When he's not injured, he misses open goals and then scores worldies. Like it's just, I love him.
Do you remember the hashtag Wells is that guy that was going around?
Oh yeah, every time he scores, I put out a Wele picture of him as Pele with his face on it. He's great.
No, he was actually Pele for England though. He always did well for England. Man.
Yeah, he did too, man. That was the one thing. Wells is that guy. Oh my god.
I'd love to see Kevin Nolan get a run at it. Bit of that.
He failed, didn't he? He was a bit of a failure, I think, at Orient and Notts County. He sort of he seems to have a rapport with the players. I mean, to the end of the season, if we sack Moyes, I mean, we're not going to sack Moyes. We're international break. We was going to sack him. We'd have sacked him last week, wouldn't we? After the Villa game, but no, if we sacked him now, I'd be happy with Nolan to the end of the season. I don't think a lot would go wrong or go worse.
Interesting.
Let's get back to it, Pete. We'll come back to questions again, but that was a good one to get people's thoughts. Good one, Toon Gamer. Good question. Right, let's carry on, Pete.
Chelsea Football Club. Some also call them the £1 billion bottle jobs. Sitting languishing mid-table again, as you said. You don't want to be there, Don. You're there. Look, when you won our preview, that 40, I actually timed it from when you guys started. Your rant, bearing in mind, the people on the panel, you wouldn't have seen this. It was a match preview. But there was a Chelsea rant for the best part of 45 minutes. About Poch, about the club. You guys went in, you and Charlie, you especially. But look, you're still in touching distance. You beat us, and honestly, I don't know what your opinion of was that, but I just thought both teams were horrid in that game, and obviously you guys were just slightly better and got the win. But that's pulled you now to 1 point behind us. You're now in the talk and in a position where a few wins in a row could get you there. Like honestly though, in your opinion, kind of give us a quick summary of how you feel your season is so far. But do you really think that you can get Europe this season? Do you really think you can be consistent enough to pick up Europa Conference at minimum? What are your thoughts, mate?
Yeah, I think, listen, for now, we've got some winnable fixtures coming up. I say winnable because we've had a lot of winnable fixtures this year, and then we've gone and got smoked. I remember when we played you guys, when we lost, was it 4-1? We had a lot of injuries, and I kept saying, now is the good time to play Newcastle because they've been on form, but they've got a lot of injuries. We went to Man United. We made them look like Barcelona. Do you know what I'm saying? We've been to a couple places where that team's not on form, and we end up dropping points because, missing chances in front of goal. We haven't been set up correctly. That's the theme of our season. The players take some blame, but like I said before, Pete, I think 80% of it is on Poch. He hasn't been good enough tactically in terms of his lineups, his in-game management. All of that hasn't been good enough, which is a recipe for disaster when you've got a team full of young players, right? But looking at the fixtures we've got coming up, we've got Burnley at home, we've got Man United at home, we've got Sheffield United away there that you can see, Everton at home, and our home form has actually picked up quite a bit. Obviously, then it gets a little bit harder. You've got Arsenal after that. We gave them a good game at the Bridge. I remember a lot of Arsenal fans thought they were going to come and just, pop us off the park. And I kept telling them at the time, I said, listen, we're not picking up points, but we're actually playing well. We just keep missing a lot of chances. But recently, our performances haven't been that great. They've been, a lot of ping pong football is what I've been watching. We're conceding chances, but we're scoring goals, So how I look at it, we need to beat these teams we've got coming up, man. We have to beat Burnley. We have to beat Man United, man. We have to beat them finally at the Bridge, yeah? And we've got to beat Sheffield. So I'm looking at least 9 points there. Everton as well, we've got them at home. I'm expecting a win there. All of those fixtures there, I'm expecting W's for all of them. Yeah. All of them. And like I said, we've got players coming back now. We've got Lavia coming back, apparently. Nkuku coming back, apparently. This manager keeps using excuses about injuries. Like I said, every team's got injuries. You've got to manage that situation. For me, he's not a good problem solver. That is why he struggles when we've got injuries, because he doesn't know what to do with the players that he's got. So, yeah, looking at that there, really and truly, I don't want to be too greedy, but I do expect 12 points out of them. But 10 points for me is the absolute minimum there, man. We need to start pushing, and just finish off strongly at least. Try to get into Europe through the league as well.
Interesting, yeah. Like you said, they are probably 4 winnable games. You just never know what type of Man United team turn up. You'd expect them to beat Burnley, Sheffield United. I think most teams are beating them at the moment. Everton aren't great either, but then it gets a little bit tougher. Those 3 games are not easy, and then you finish at Forest, which Forest can turn up and cause teams problems as well.
They're beating us already this season, man.
And that's the thing, and you just don't know where. Like what to expect, but look, you've talked about Poch out. You know, is he the main problem at your club though? Like, is he the main issue, or are there other problems which has resulted in you being in the position that you're in?
I think it starts from the top. You know, the owners, they brought in too many, you know, inexperienced players. You know, I like a lot of our players at the moment, but a lot of them should be coming off the bench and learning around experience. You know, that's where they've gone wrong. And in terms of not bringing in a striker, I think if you look back into the summer, there wasn't really anyone available, man. You know, Harry Kane, he wasn't really attainable at the time. Who else did you have that was available in the summer? You had Højlund, you know. But apart from that, the summer market was dry, if you guys can remember. So I kind of sympathize with them when they couldn't bring in a striker because there wasn't really anyone available. Tony just got the ban as well. When I was looking around the market, there wasn't really anyone there. But, you know, depending on someone like a Jackson, first time in the league, still young, it's backfired because you can see how poor he is in front of goal. Do you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of games where if we had like an Osimhen or Harry Kane in front of goal, we're not 10th or 11th, wherever we are right now. So I have to sympathize in that part. There's a few holes in this team. But ultimately, this team shouldn't be 11th. Like, if you look at some of the players that we've got in this team, they should not be 11th. And that's like I said, a lot of it is based on the manager and how he's been setting them up. You know, playing Enzo in the 10, playing Ben Chilwell at left wing, playing Levi Cole at left back, playing Thiago Silva every single game. You know, playing Sterling week in, week out, even if he stinks, he still starts the following game. Gallagher, building around Conor Gallagher. You guys saw what type of player Gallagher was yesterday. You know, I see a lot of those performances, but I keep getting gaslighted. He's been your best midfielder. He's been your best midfielder. No, he hasn't. What it is he's literally been played every single game. So you see a lot of him, right? And everyone else around him is he's being prioritized, and everyone else around him is just like, oh, you're just a little throwaway. You know, Caicedo's a little throwaway. Play him in a lone 6 by himself. You know, Enzo's a little throwaway. Play him in a 10. Make him overlap left wingers. You know, this is the crazy stuff that's going on in my team right now. So listen, most of it obviously is on the owners because they built this team. But I don't think this team is as bad as what it's been made out to be this season. And a big part of that is because we've got a manager that doesn't know how to use our players.
Boys, I'm going to leave it to you. Chelsea Football Club. You know, is it on the manager? Is it on the players? Is it on the ownership? Like, what do you think is the main sort of issue around Chelsea Football Club? Like, Tom, I'll start with you, and then I'll go back to the Southern boys to come in. On
I want to take a shot. Chelsea. Yeah, any shot I can take against Chelsea, I'll take.
Yeah, Tom, talk to us. What are your thoughts about Chelsea?
I think they're a team of individuals. I don't think the players a team really, from what I've seen. When we played them at Christmas Eve, like, I think the money they spend, I mean, like what Gary Neville said, you know, £1 billion bottle jobs. I thought that was quite harsh because I thought in the game I don't actually think they bottled it. But that's just my opinion. But I think with the money they've spent, I remember at the start of the season, I was backing them to like win the league. I genuinely thought they'd be up the top with the money they spent. Poch coming in, I thought he'd hit the ground running. I thought he'd do well. And everything's just gone wrong. Everything's just backfired. I mean, as we were just saying then, like, you're playing Thiago Silva every game. He's 38, 39.
39, bro. He's 39.
Class defender. But the Premier League is so fast. He shouldn't be playing every game.
Yeah.
And then, you know, it's just stupid stuff playing, you know, your left back at left wing, having your midfielder in a 10.
4 games. He did that for 4 games, by the way.
It's just it's a struggle. It's a struggle to listen to be honest, because with the amount of money you spend, you're expecting something, you're expecting some sort of result, and there's just nothing there. There's nothing there. I think there's too many individuals in the team for me.
Do you know what? It's quite the reason why there's individuals, or it looks like there's individuals in the team, is because there's a lack of chemistry, right?
Yeah.
Because he doesn't know how to profile a lot of these players. It's similar to Southgate in a way. Like, he doesn't know how to profile a lot of the quality that he's got. You know, playing Gallagher in a pivot. If you watch Gallagher, you know that he's not comfortable on the ball. He doesn't want to turn on the half turn because he doesn't trust his quality on the ball. He just gets pressed, he'll lose it. You know, you're playing Jude Bellingham in a 10 when you've got a better 10 there in a Foden, for example. You're playing Foden on the wing. You could have started Bowen there. Foden's not his best position is not playing.
Well, hold on. Bellingham was the best player last night in an England shirt.
No,
but I agree with
Bellingham
you.
was good. Bellingham was good. But what I'm saying is, for me, he's better as a box-to-box player, right? Like there's someone else that's better in that position for me. You know, when I look at Bellingham, I was listening to what Culture Cams was saying earlier, yeah, and I literally feel the same way because I was speaking to my friends about this earlier. I said, for me, Jude, he could do a job as a 10, but there's other people that I'd play in that position before him, right? Same sort of thing as Poch. You know, I don't know what he was watching when he was, you know, given Caicedo. Caicedo never got played as a lone 6 at Brighton. I don't know where he's got this idea to be playing him in this island by himself. He always had someone next to him, McAllister, Pascal Gross. He likes to combine. That's how Caicedo is. On the ball, when he's got it, he's not as good as like a Lavia, for example, of getting out of tight situations. You can press Caicedo. And it's happened a couple of times this season where he's been pressed and he's lost the ball. Do you know what I'm saying? So again, you're killing him. Like I said, playing so many guys out of position. And that's why there hasn't been chemistry, because he's playing people in positions where they're not comfortable. So they look like individuals because they're lost, you know. When you're being played somewhere where you're not comfortable, you're going to look lost, bro. You know what I mean? So that's been the main problem. There hasn't been that cohesion. And it's only later on in the season where he's actually started to play Caicedo and Enzo near each other. And you're seeing performances, you know, pick up. But even so, there's better personnel to a Gallagher. I know Gallagher's improved under Poch, but he's not the answer to every single game. You know, we've got a lot of technical players. We don't need him running about all the time. Sometimes just keep the ball and break lines like that. You know, create patterns like that. Not every day running, and you get the ball, you just lose it. Do you know what I mean? So again, it's a lot of how the structure is. The structure is not good enough in this team. I can't look at a pivot of Caicedo and Enzo, and it shouldn't be playing ping pong football against Newcastle. We should have been controlling that ball with the players that we've got, and it's not happening. So you've got to look at the manager for that. You know what I mean?
That's what annoyed me about that game on the Monday night, is that you guys weren't even playing well. You were literally giving us the ball back, but then we were just even worse and giving you the ball back. And then eventually you created enough opportunities to nick a goal because we're gifted.
Did you see where Gallagher was playing in that game, Pete? This guy was at left wing. He had Gallagher playing at left wing, bro. We had Caicedo and Enzo in the midfield together, and we're surprised that Newcastle were just cutting through us. Because there was so much space, because he had a midfielder playing left wing. Yeah, it's madness. It's madness what Poch does, man. Honestly, I don't see him get another top job again. I don't see him getting another top job. Like David Moyes is going to go downwards. Poch is going to go downwards as well. No top 6 club is ever going to hire this man again. You know, I don't want to go into another rant again. But no one's ever going to hire this guy again because he's a clown, honestly. And I actually predicted it. Why I'm so annoyed as well, Pete, yeah? Nah, you've got me starting now. Why I'm so annoyed, yeah, is because I predicted us to finish 3rd in the summer, yeah? 3rd, because we've got 1 game a week. And what I said about Poch, I said I expect him to play the same team every single week, the same 11. You're not going to see any chopping and changing. And he's going to go in for every single competition, right? I didn't expect him to misprofile so many players. I know he's had injuries, but even so, he's had guys like Ian Maatsen there, and he decides to play a centre-back at left-back instead. Ian Maatsen's flourishing in Dortmund right now. You know, people would tell me, oh, it's only Germany, but that's not the point. The point is, he's the sort of profile you want in build-up, like a Cucurella. You know, you don't want a guy that's going to get the ball and they're not comfortable there because he's meant to be playing at centre-back. Yeah. Levi Cole, one of the best centre-backs last season, bro. Not just young players, centre-backs in general. This season, he's got him looking like a fridge. Because he's playing that left-back. I've had Lee Gunner was saying at the start of the season, oh, Levi Cole was overhyped. I said, bro, did you see the pings this guy was giving Mitoma last season? When he came to the Emirates, did you see what he did at the Emirates up against Liverpool as well, both games? You know? And that's why I hate him, because he's got so many people talking nonsense. Enzo Fernandez, another one. Go on Twitter and see what they're saying about Enzo Fernandez. I saw this guy balling last season, yeah? Under Graham Potter. He came in January. He was our best player. This season, he's got Enzo doing a job like Gallagher. Right, and people are now saying Enzo Fernandez is crap. You know, that's another reason why he's got to go, because he's made people have this weird opinion now that a lot of the players that we've got that are quality are bad players. You know what I mean? I'm sure Adam agrees that Levi Cole was not a bad player. These guys wanted him. They were trying to, you know, come on, we want you back. We want you back. He said, no, I'm staying at Chelsea. A majority of the season, he's been playing that position.
Yeah, but like, we did want him back, but he played well because he's in a good system, right? I agree with you. But how many examples have you had over the years where players that have played well in other places just don't play well at Chelsea? You said earlier at the start, like, wow, we didn't sign a high-profile number 9 in the summer because we could. Well, that's not worked out for you for about 8 years at this point, even if you did sign the high-profile number 9. Like, there's something I just like Chelsea with sort of fiery passion. Don, you seem like a really lovely guy, but like to me, they're like everything that's wrong with football. And they've sort of come in and signed all these young players and basically mortgaged the future with all these weird contracts, with the hope that, hold on, we've got these players tied down for their best years. Now we all get to watch and be like, well, hold on, they actually might not be that good, because you kind of said like we're better than being in 11th. I don't know if I agree, like, because who are your best players? Because I look at Enzo, Mudryk, Caicedo, Cucurella, all these players. What have they actually done? One good year in a Brighton shirt. Cucurella did a decent job at an Olympics. Enzo Fernandez passed to Messi for about 8 games. Like,
so now you're being disingenuous, because you're one of the guys that was saying earlier. What was he saying earlier? Oh, we really miss Caicedo. We haven't been able to
exactly. We do miss Caicedo, but one season doesn't a career make. Like,
but look what you're seeing. No, this is a perfect example. I'm so happy you're on this panel. Yeah, this is a perfect example because again, go on Twitter and see what rivals say about Caicedo. They think Caicedo's been crap this season, and all of a sudden, Caicedo is overrated and whatnot. You saw what Caicedo was doing at your club because he was being used correctly, is my point here. Right? And you will never, I said this from summer, you're never going to build any chemistry and any cohesion playing multiple people out of position. Yeah, you can't look at guys like Levi Cole, as young as he is, and think, oh, he can't handle the Prem. He's already shown that he can handle the Prem. And even before the season started, bro, did you see what people were saying about him in the Euros that they won? Right? I had so many rival friends like, yo, they didn't even know this guy played for Chelsea. I was like, bro, Levi Cole he's a baller. Do you know what I mean? But you're not going to see the best of them if they're not being used correctly, unfortunately. We literally see this with England. There's a clear parallel right there.
Well,
this manager doesn't use our players correctly. It's the same thing as Poch. He created his own mess. You know, he's created his own mess right now.
Do you think the squad that you have, though, even with a top tier manager in place, is a top 6 team?
Yeah, I do. We've got a lot of players, and right now we've literally had one game a week.
Your best player is a guy that Pep Guardiola looked at and said, nah, I don't want him.
Yeah, but that's because he had Mahrez ahead of him. He had Bernardo Silva ahead of him. Even Foden was ahead of him and he couldn't start. You know, it wasn't like he was crappy. It's not like he came from Wimbledon. He came from the treble winners.
It takes a lot, though, to get rid of a homegrown player off your, like, that's big for Man City. Mahrez they got rid of at the same time, right? Like, all I'm saying is that Wise Poch figured out how to play Cole Palmer, but not others. But Cole Palmer's already. This is what I'm saying though. Cole Palmer has always had that ability, because when we signed him in the summer, I was getting cooked for saying that he's going to be a serious signing for us. They were calling me deluded. The guy hasn't even scored a goal in the Prem. I said, bro, if you watch this guy for Man City in the FA Cup, in the Carabao Cup, he never looks out of place, even though he's young. And I called him polished for a 21-year-old. He doesn't play like a 21-year-old. He plays beyond his years, right? So he doesn't need a guy like Poch, because he already has that natural ability to do what he does. All Poch says to him is just go play your game, and he goes and does it. Some of these players don't listen to Poch. You can tell. Gusto, you think he listens to Poch? He just plays his game. If I was playing in midfield, I would have listened to Poch either, because I know that that's going to mean it's ping pong football. I'll just do what I want to do. You know what I'm saying? Be like a Cole Palmer. Yeah, because you have to be. You have to be, because this manager's clueless. You know what I mean? So listen, it's very similar to Gerrard. Before I go, because I've actually got to shoot. I've got family around. Yeah, it's very similar to what happened with Villa last season. Remember when Gerrard had all those players? And if you look at their squad, you're looking at their squad like, how the hell is Aston Villa 17th right now or 18th right now? Unai Emery comes in and they shoot up the table, and now they've been in conversations this season for, you know, could they win the title? What can they do? Do you know what I mean? And it's pretty much the same sort of team. So you can't ignore, man, how big and how important a good coach is, you know? And like I said, for me, Poch has expired. He's no longer needed in his time in the Prem. I think he's past it. He's one of the worst. I said the other day, Rob Edwards, I think, is a better coach than him, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying?
just before you go, Don, because I know you got family around, so I know you have to shoot. What's your final position this season?
Oh, we're so unpredictable, man. We're so unpredictable, but now I just have to hope. Yeah. With those fixtures coming up, surely we have to get a couple W's in there. So I want to say 6th. I want to say 6th.
You know what? He's not far off, because those fixtures of comparing to the Brighton and West Ham, they are favorable even compared to ours, Pete. Yeah. And they've played a game less than us and 2 games less than West Ham. And sorry, Don, I think Poch sticks around. I think he does well for the rest of the season. I think he sticks around into next season, and they give him a proper striker. He's Harry Kane style striker, maybe Nosman, and see what he does next year. But I think you're going to be stuck with him.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. But no, look, it's been a pleasure, mate. Great to have you on as always. And look, we'll get you back on because this won't be the last time we're talking Europe with these boys before the end of the season, for sure. But
cool.
Look, you take care, bro.
Cool. In a bit, boys.
See you later.
Cheers, Don.
Cheers, man.
Dave, I was going to ask you. I know he's just left. I was going to ask you, do you think, just before we come on to Wolves, do you think that actually this is it for Chelsea? Do you think that this is where Chelsea will be now moving forward? Because we've seen it with teams beforehand. Man United for the last kind of they're not kind of 10th or 11th, but they're certainly not fighting for titles anymore. They've had a drop off in the last 10 years. Do you think this could now be sort of Chelsea where they aren't that top team that are winning trophies anymore? Could this be the start of what we're going to expect to see from them? What do you think?
I'm glad Don's gone. I can say this because I didn't want to upset him. But do you remember how Leeds were a really good side, and then they made the wrong decisions and they just went into free fall?
Mm-hmm.
David O'Leary.
Chelsea have done their transfer business for the next 3-4 years. They've spent so much money and they've mortgaged it. If these guys don't come good, if these kids don't all of a sudden all mature to be world-class footballers, they're in free fall, because if they don't reach their potential, they can't there's no resale value on them. They've absolutely mortgaged the club to the hilt on these young players on a gamble that I don't think is going to pay off for them. And I really think, we saw Leeds go down. We've had to swallow our medicine and go down. Obviously, Newcastle have gone down twice, I think, in the past 15 or so years. Chelsea ain't too big for it. Yeah. And they could be. I think they're going to do well. You look at those fixtures. I think they're going to do well this season. But if they don't kick on, and they're going to continue to finish around 8th or 9th for the next 2 or 3 years, that free fall is going to come.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised to see it come. It may not, but I wouldn't be surprised to see it come. Like you said, they've spent so much money. There has to come a point where profit and sustainability kicks in. There has to be. You can't just keep spending that level of money. And
Man United has shown us you sort of can. You just end up there.
Well, yeah, that's true. They don't get the sort of revenues that Man United. I don't think no. But they don't get sort of revenues that Man United get. And I just think at some point, their pure profit of their young academy players, where they can just sell on and make millions off, it's going to stop. It doesn't continue on forever. You can't keep doing it forever. At some point, that's going to stop. And that's been their cash cow. That's been their saving grace. The fact that they've been able to sell these young players off for bags of money. And it's going to come a point where they can't. And it's really interesting. You boys have all talked about Conor Gallagher at some point tonight, because he's their big hope. Not as a player for their team. He's their big hope that he raises money for them in the summer. They want him gone. They want to get as much money out of him as possible. And we saw last night, he's not a great player. He's got great intensity. He runs around and he's got, I think he's got the best stats for pressing in Europe. The highest pressing midfielder in Europe, I think he is. But on the ball, it isn't great. And it does get exposed, and it has been exposed for Chelsea this season. It does get exposed for England. Can he be coached? Maybe, but I just think for the money that they want from him, I just don't think they're going to get it. And I think
it's the English McTominay.
Is he that good?
Wow, there you go. Well, look, we'll swiftly move on to Wolves and then quickly Newcastle before we wrap up. Tom, you're the surprise package this season. I don't think anybody on this panel would have said that in March 2024 we'd be talking about Wolves potentially getting European football. And I know Adam never minces his words when he talks about managers that he wouldn't take, and he threw Gary O'Neill into that. But I tell you what, he's done a heck of a job, in my opinion, for Wolves. But just as a Wolves fan, mate, talk to us about your season, where you're at, and your, in your opinion, your chances for European football.
I think O'Neill's done brilliant. Like I said earlier, as you just said, no one expected us to be in this position. I didn't. I didn't think we'd go down. A lot of people put us to go down. I didn't think we'd go down. But I didn't think we'd be doing this good. I thought we'd be sitting around 14th, 13th. And I would have been happy with that. I would have been fine with that. But yeah, he's done excellent. He's got the most out of these players, I'd say, and it's a growth in process. It's a work in progress. I think a lot of the players trust him. I think you've got to look at before our season, Lopetegui leaves. You've got 4 days left to get a manager, and he comes in. He's got nothing to spend. He's got to deal with these players that he's got. That's it. So for him to do this job, after none of these players are his. None of these players are his. He's come into this squad and he's the one that's changed it. So, all credit is due to him. Don't get me wrong, there's still times where we've had bad episodes throughout the season. Like I mentioned earlier, West Ham 3-0. I went to St James's Park. We left that ground 3-0. But then there's other games where we'll fight back. The Man City at home, beat them 2-1 in like a vital time for that season. So I think one big thing for me with us getting Europe, I mean, we're sitting 9th at the minute. I think if it pushes back to the 8th place, then I think we might just about sneak in. Obviously, you've got to look at our run-in as well. I know Chelsea have got a really good run-in, but I can't see them anywhere near 6th, personally. But when you look at our running, I mean, Villa's a tough one.
Yeah.
But I always say, derby games are completely different to normal games.
True.
Mateus Cunha's coming back. Bellegarde should be back for that game. Those are 2 key players that you need. Because right now we're using our academy, which isn't bad, but you're throwing them in the deep end. I mean, Burnley on a Tuesday night, you've got to have 3 points, but it's a tough place to go. We like it when clubs come running at us and we can pick them apart and play on the counter. So that'll be a tough one because they'll stick in. West Ham, again, tough game. We'll want to get revenge from that. Forest, we always have tough games against Forest. Arsenal, obviously, very hard game. They're absolutely flying. And then you look at some of the games there, Bournemouth, Luton, Palace. They're the type of games where you want to be trying to pick out 3 points, really. Man City's always going to be tough. And then, obviously, Liverpool on last day of the season. I mean, if O'Neill could stop Klopp's total charge on the last day of the season in his last season of Liverpool, I think that would be the cherry on the cake for me.
That would be nice for sure. To be fair, I spoke to little Dan, and he mentioned your fixtures are favourable, and they are. There's some winnable, definitely some winnable fixtures in there for sure. But I didn't realise you still had Arsenal, Man City, and Liverpool to play. You still got
the hat trick there.
Yeah, that literally is. You're absolutely right, Daz. That is the hat trick, and they're all fighting tooth and nail for that Premier League title. So, they're going to be tough games. But looking at that, there are some winnable points in there. Like I say, you don't have to win every game to get it. The one question I had for you is, and I think you've already touched on it now, is your squad. The squad is very small, and you have picked up a number of injuries. And look, one of your talisman. Pedro Neto, I think it's rumored now he's going to be out for 9 weeks. That's a big miss. And do you think? Question really I've got for you is: do you think that you can manage and still get the results where you expect to in those fixtures without him?
I think you have to. I think no player is bigger than the club. You look at when we had Mateus Nunes, obviously moved for City. And players like that, no players are bigger than the club. I think Neto is obviously injury prone, as we know. But when he is fit, he is brilliant. But if he wasn't so injury prone, he wouldn't be at Wolves right now. He would have already moved on. I said that when it was in lockdown, he kept us up that year. We struggled 1 year in lockdown. He was brilliant again, and he's in the form of his life. Goes and gets injured. Juventus was interested. Arsenal have always been in the mix. But I don't think any club comes in for him because how much Wolves value him. And no one wants to pay that for someone who's going to be injured after the season. So he's a big miss, of course. He's a big miss because he's a big player, he's a big personality, and he's one of them that's really hard to replace because of how fast he is. He's so direct, and when he's on the ball, you know something's going to happen. So he's hard to replace, but I think that's just where you put your trust in your other players. Lamina, he's having the season of his life so far in terms of goal scoring. He scored like the most, I think, in the last 4 seasons or something. So O'Neill's really getting out with him. He's playing really well. As the comment mentions there, João Gomez, he's been absolutely fantastic. He was 18 million, I think, and he's been outstanding. He celebrates a tackle more than he does a goal, which I absolutely love.
Reminds me of someone. we have a Brazilian that does that as well.
Yeah, it must be a Brazilian thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, fantastic. He's done really well, and I think that's all down to O'Neill. One thing I will say, especially to you, Dave, as well, when we did have Lopetegui, he wanted to get rid of Ryan Nori and bring in Aaron Cresswell. So, I mean, all due respect, that would have been the worst transfer in, I think, maybe our history as a club. Because, and I probably do sound biased saying this, but I do think Nori is the best left back in the league. I think when he's on form, he brings so much to this team. I actually think if we lose Nori in the summer, I think he's much harder to replace than Neto.
Wow, big statement. We know about Nori. One of our guys, Chris, he's talked about him for quite a while. As a player that he's admired, and to be fair, he's looking some player, like he really is. But look, Daz, Adam, Dave, your opinions on Wolves as we kind of come through, and then we'll move on to Newcastle.
But let's go to Adam first, because I think Adam may have to drop off.
That's kind of you, Daz. Thank you. Yeah, and it's a shame because this has been a fun chat. Yeah, look, I haven't enjoyed watching Brighton play Wolves for a variety of reasons, but it's testament to what Gary O'Neill's done, right? I think he sets his side up against different teams in the way in which to play against their weaknesses, and that's just a sign of a good manager. And you're right, like he's got to be a shout for manager of the year, right? It's the fact that he's come in, no one expected any of this. The squad's light. The other sign of a really good manager is kind of the opposite of what Don said, right? He makes these players look better than potentially they are. No one was shouting from the rooftops about Nuri, Cunha a little bit, like Pedro Neto. Yes, he's been rumoured with bigger clubs, but we've never properly seen it, and they've all really come good this year. So, I mean, I think it's amazing. I'd be interested to know what you think in terms of, like, do you actually want to get into Europe, though? Because you've got a light squad. Potentially, you're going to lose one of these players, right? One of your top players. Are you then going to go into, like, a massive fixture craziness next year and suddenly, you're finishing 15th? Or would you rather, finish 9th or something like that, build the squad up and continue from there?
Well, it's a great question, but I think if you say to me, if we do lose one of our big players, we're not in any rush to sell these players. Because of the amount of players we sold before the season, Neves, Nunes, we're cleared of FFP. So I think, like with West Ham, they finished 14th in the league, but you've gone and won Conference League. I understand, you can't do both, especially with how tight our squad is. So I think if we do sell a big player and we do get a big fee, I think with Matt Hobbs, he's done brilliant with the recruitment, bringing the younger players through. So I think if we do sell a big player, I think we'd recruit well. I'd like to back us to anyway. So, but I think that all comes down to where we finish too. Especially because if you don't sell a big player and you get into Europe, then you could be in a bit of an issue because you do need that. You do need that depth with fixtures, midweek fixtures, playing again on the Sunday. It's tough. It's very tough. The travelling, a lot of things that people don't actually think about in European football. It's a lot more, and it's a lot on the players. We've got a relatively young squad. I mean, players like Dawson, people like that, they're key to this squad because there's so many that are young and not inexperienced, but still coming, especially in the Premier League as well. So to have those type of players around who understand the game, understand what it means to play, that helps a lot. But I'd 100%. If you say to me, end of the season, say we beat Liverpool last day of the season to get Europe and Klopp's crying, happy days.
We can agree on that. Yeah.
We all agree on that.
Yeah. So I wouldn't be afraid of it if we did get Europe. I'd back us to invest, but I think that comes from sell to buy. I think if we do get Europe, then Champions League clubs might come in, and all due respect, there are many clubs bigger than us who have more money and can offer more things. So you've got to let players go if they want to go. You want players in the club who want to play for the club. So yeah, if we can get Europe, 100%.
Yeah, I asked the question because it's we've been through the same thing, right? And it's the I think if you ask any Brighton fan, they'd want this to happen again, right? Because these are things that don't happen very often, maybe never again, but they come with consequences, right? Suddenly you have to then rebuild again, and you think about what if. But it's good times for Wolves. I've got to jump, guys. Pleasure as always. Thank you very much for inviting me. Always love it coming on here.
We'll get you back. I'll chat to you soon. We'll get you back on. We'll talk some more.
Look, when Chelsea finish below 6th, I will come back here. I'll be wearing a party hat. Everything. I'll love it. Don't worry.
We get down as well.
Yeah.
Bye. You take care.
See you, Adam.
Oh, brilliant stuff. Brilliant stuff. Dave, in fact, yeah, your opinions on Wolves. Are they are they a team that worry you for those European places, or is it a little bit like what Adam said and what we've mentioned as well? Do you think the squad and the lack of players or the lack of depth in their squad is going to kind of catch up with them?
I don't think it's going to hamper them for the rest of this season in terms of getting into Europe. I think I would be all right. I think the thing that Adam touched on, I didn't realise until just before the show, is next season the whole Champions League format thing is apparently coming to the Europa League and Conference League, which is going to create an extra two match days. And I'll tell you what, those away trips are not going to put a drain on your bank balance. As I say, I look at your fixtures. I back you to finish above us. I'll be honest. I look at especially some of those home games. Us, Luton. I think there was another one. Was it Sheffield United? If you still got to play them at home, I mean there was 3 or 4 home games you look at and you think, and you nick a few points here and there. I mean, Arsenal, one of those sides that, beat us 6-0 at the London Stadium, and we beat them 10-0 at theirs. They're a very Jekyll and Hyde side. So if you can get into them at the right time, there's nothing to say you can't go and cause an upset there. Obviously, I mean, Liverpool, Man City, we're all going to write them off, aren't we? When you go to those sort of grounds, nobody writes those games off more than David Moyes anyway. But when you go to those sort of grounds, you kind of expect to get beat. You sort of just want to put up a show and at least make them work for it. I think I'm the only one that's particularly bothered about Klopp winning the league. Anyone but Arsenal for me. I just don't want to see. I don't want to see Arsenal in there. Their fans are just absolutely unbearable. In terms of a big player, though, Tom, I will ask: would you entertain selling Craig Dawson? Because I love him back at West Ham. I miss him.
No, never. Yeah, he's key. He's massive for us. I mean, obviously it was due to family reasons, especially in moving. So we was lucky, to be fair. But I always rated him. But obviously because I'm watching him every single week, I didn't actually realise how good he actually is. He's 33. Yeah, he's not the fastest defender, but he reads the game so well. And he scored a fair few goals for us as well. So he helps out on both ends. And he's just a massive player to have in the squad, especially the amount of young players. Having Kilman next to him as well, helping Kilman, that helps the defence a mile. But yeah, he's vital to this team, 100%.
Yeah, he was brilliant in both ends for us. We've been linked with Kilman, funny enough. There was talk in January that Naif Aguerd wants out, and if we can get 40 to 45 million for him, we're going to spend that on Kilman. I don't know what your take would be on that transfer. I
mean, we signed him from Maidenhead, and he come through the academy. So you look at it from a business aspect. If you can get 40, 45 million, that is fantastic. A lot of Wolves fans would probably drive him to London for that. He does get a lot of hate, Kilman does, I'd say, from our fans. It's a 50-50 split, I'd say. A lot of them don't like him being captain. A lot of doubt his leadership, but I've always said with Kilman, our squad is full of hotheads. Our squad will go lunging into tackles, raring to go. Kilman's the actual one that is calm. So that is why people want your captain to be a rookie and getting sent off, and sometimes your captain doesn't have to look like that. So, but in terms of like a ball playing centre half, he's fantastic, absolutely fantastic. But 45 million, it will be unbelievable if we got that kind of price for him. I know Napoli was linked with him. I think that was last season. So, you've got to be some calibre of player for a massive Italian club to come in for you. But Wolves aren't in no position to sell either, so I don't think they'll be in a rush to sell him. I think he's around 24, 25, so he's still got his best years ahead of him as well. So I think if we was to sell him, I think you'd be pushing 50 million.
Yeah, we might have to add him to our list, as.
Yeah, we did look at him before. I think it was around the time right before he signed that signed the contract and then got the captaincy. Maybe it was all rumors and agent talk in the background, but we were linked to him. And I know we had a journalist on who had put us in the. It was Ben Jacobs, I think it was actually that mentioned it at the time. And the very next day he signed the contract or something like that. So it was interesting the way it played out.
Typical.
But I'm going to give you my thoughts on Wolves as well, Pete. So if Wolves get into Europe, Gary O'Neill should be manager of the year, because I wrote off Wolves completely, especially with what happened with getting rid of the other manager and having a team full of Portuguese lads. Who's going to come in? There has to be a Portuguese lad that comes in and a manager comes in to get the best out of them. Gary O'Neill as Bournemouth must be kicking themselves. I know they're doing okay, but why did they let him go? I really don't get that. They're doing really well. In the fixtures, not looking great to me, especially having Arsenal and Man City and Liverpool to play. But I think overall, if the season finished now, Wolves have had a brilliant season. To tell you the truth, from where they started, I'm sure everyone would have laughed if they heard that they were sitting in ninth at this stage of the season. So, but fair play to Wolves. They have some great players as we touched on. Kuna, Neto, who are all after the speed merchant, but the injuries it's question marks over whether he'll get a big move because of that. Maybe at the right price as well. We'd be interested, and a few more in the eight areas, as you said, Pete. Chris has been talking about eight Nori for the last 2 years, so he has spotted them, and it's only this year everyone else is catching up on that. So. But interesting to see how it goes for Wolves.
Definitely, and I think Gomez will definitely get some interest. There's already been links with the likes of Man United and various other teams with him. I think that the pressure is going to mount at some point, whether it's this summer or next summer, I don't know. But the pressures will come at that point. But he does look a very, very talented player. Daz, I'm going to stick with you because we're going to end on Newcastle United. We've already talked about it back end of last week. Botman is out between 6 to 9 months, done his ACL, is having surgery this week. An absolute hammer blow to us in our season that's been full of injuries. Injuries galore that have definitely hampered things. Question marks about Eddie Howe. A fantastic kind of memories, Champions League, winning against PSG, getting to 2 quarterfinals. How do you assess our season, mate?
A bit of a disaster, Pete, isn't it? Great up until, as I said earlier, up until that second game of PSG. I kind of pinpointed that as a kind of turning point where the handball and the Mbappe penalty, and it was kind of downhill from there. Of course, we had the Tonali thing at the start of the season as well, which it didn't help. But injury after injury, it's been a joke. And the thing with Eddie Howe, not wanting to rotate as well, being a bit stubborn. But we've said before, we're sticking with Eddie Howe. We're backing him into next season, and for us to strengthen in the summer. add a bit of depth to our squad, bring in a few key players as well that we need. As we identified in our squad game show, we identified at least 6. I don't think we'll get 6, but we need a few players in the summer. Yeah, but in terms of the fixtures, then they're not too bad. We've got the big boys out of the way, so that isn't too bad. Looking forward to the West Ham game, as we said, coming up that we're at on next Saturday. Then you immediately after that, we're with Everton. You was hoping we'd get a win. We're home against Everton. Fulham we've beaten already. Spurs that'll be a tricky one. Spurs we're obviously fighting for the Champions League. Palace. You never know how that goes. I know they've got a new manager. There's a bit of a bounce from them as well since they've got that. Sheffield United, bring that one on. We could do another few goals. Burnley, Brighton. Yeah, always difficult when we play Brighton. We seem to struggle to get our results against them, and they up their game. That's when Evan Ferguson will break his duck and score a few goals. We also have the Man United to play. It's not listed there, but it has to be rearranged. It'll be interesting to see where that falls. Probably be a midweek game. But yeah, so we have a favourable run in, especially compared to Brighton, to West Ham, and to Wolves. Chelsea was the one that has a more favourable run than us, I think. So they'd be my danger team there. But yeah. Where do I think we can finish, Pete? That was the next question. I know what you're going to ask, so I got to guess. But I think we can still get 6th. I want us to still fight and to finish ahead of Man United. I know. Shout out to Dan United as well. Hope you're well, buddy. But
he's just for a second. He's actually in hospital. I had a feeling that something wasn't right. He's just messaged me to say he's in hospital and he couldn't make the show. So best wishes to you, Dan. Hope you get better soon. That's the most important thing. We'll get him back on the channel shortly when he's up and running. Sorry, Daz.
No. So yeah, I think we're still fighting for that 6th place, and we're not going to give it up too easily. So some of the lads are fighting for 10th. We're fighting for 6th soon. I'm not going looking that far down yet.
Dave, I'll come to you with Newcastle. Obviously, we've kind of been in those positions that you've been in for the last 3. You've been in them for the last 3 years, fighting around Europe, sort of top 6, trying to break into that top 4. Obviously, we got the top 4 in the Champions League last season. What have you made in Newcastle season? The drop off, the injuries. I don't know if you've seen any of the kind of the question marks about Eddie Howe that small sections of our fan base have been kind of giving to us. What are your thoughts about Newcastle? Do you think we've even got a chance of getting to Europe, or do you just think with the season we've had, it's just maybe one stretch too far?
No, I think you're going to get into Europe. I'll be fairly confident of that. I think, to be fair, I think injuries have hampered you massively. If you take Sven Botman, Alexander Isak, and put them into, Nick Pope, I think he's missed a large part of the season. Yeah. If you lose those 3, if you took those 3 players out of Newcastle and put them into any of the other teams we've talked about tonight, they would improve. That's Tonali as well, another one who obviously not been injured but out for the season. Yeah. You're missing the spine of a very good side. I think with Eddie Howe, if you flipped the 2 seasons, and last season you were having this season where, you've had a few injury problems and you're 7th or 8th, and then, obviously this season you were finishing top 4. I don't think there'd be any discussion around Eddie Howe, because I think at that point you're seeing that constant progression, and then you've got the hope and you've got the optimism that comes with it.
Yeah.
Whereas to go from being 4th in the Champions League and having those nights in Paris and Dortmund and Milan, and then sort of, looking at it where you're trying to fight for Europa League, that drop off, I think, probably does create a negative feeling in a way that, but it's easy from the outside. Like, it's easy as a West Ham fan. Like, when you're looking from the outside in, it's really easy to go, but actually, you're having a good season. Eddie Howe's a great manager. So if you're not watching it every week, we get it with David Moyes. you know, it's very hard to understand the vibe and the feeling around Newcastle.
No, I think that's fair, and you're not the only one to mention that kind of flip seasons. Like if we'd have had this season, last season, and then gone on to finish fourth, you're not the only one to mention that, because I think it would have changed the feeling around the club, the fans. There certainly wouldn't have been any negativity, that's for sure. But there has been a few, not Newcastle fans, but other fans that have started to kind of question whether Newcastle will get back into that race, kind of fighting for the top four. Like Tom, do you think Newcastle will put this season to the side and hit back next season and fight at the top? Do you think they've got a squad sort of good enough to do that under Eddie Howe?
Yeah, 100%. I think you've got to look at, especially for next season, you go, like we just said, Tonali coming back. Gordon's hit good form this season. Isaac, you've got plenty of good players, and you've got good depth too. That's the main thing. You've got good depth. You've got chance to cover if you need to. I mean, getting into Champions League, obviously beating PSG. I watched that game with my mate who's a Newcastle fan, and he couldn't believe it. So, it must be unreal. But I think they've kind of just got to not take the foot off the gas, but kind of see this season out and then regroup and go again. And then I think next season is that one where you want to get back in the top four again. I think because you've had a taste of Champions League now, and you earn the right to get into the Champions League, that's not easy. And you didn't have a tough draw either. Borussia Dortmund, AC Milan, PSG. That's hard.
Every draw we had this season was tough.
Look, I saw that, and I sent it my mate who's a Newcastle fan straight away. I was like, "Oh my god, mate, you must be like devastated, but excited at the same time." So, yeah, I mean that PSG game, the one at home, that was unbelievable. Even like I felt like I was supporting Newcastle just because it was the English team, but like I'm a big fan of like the Newcastle fans and everything. I went when you lot beat us 3-0, but just all around the place, there was really nice people. There was a guy called Manny Singh who is with Wolves. I don't know if you heard about it. He walked, so he walked from Monya to St James's Park, and as much as there was Wolves fans covering it, there was as many Geordies and Newcastle fans as there was Wolves, and it was really good to see. So I think it's definitely deserved the success they've had, and I think they'll come again, especially now they've had the taste of Champions League, 100%.
Well, we hope so. I still think I have to keep looking back at the fixtures, and I'll bring them up again. I just look at those fixtures. I actually think our fixtures are more favourable than Chelsea's. I think Chelsea would much rather have these set of fixtures. Yeah, I do. I think we have. I mean, you look at that. You look at West Ham, Everton, both at home. So both in our favour. Fulham away, we've already won there in the FA Cup this season. We can do it again for sure. Tottenham again at home, so that it slightly puts us in our favour because it is on our home patch. And then like Palace away, Palace are up and down with their season. But then you look at you look at Palace. Sheffield United at home, you'd expect 3 points from there. Burnley, you expect a team of Newcastle's ability to go there and beat Burnley, certainly create them a shed load of problems. And then the last two games of the season, you've got Brighton at home. We have recently, we've not.
Man United away as well, Pete, to throw in there.
Man United, easy win. Edward Wood, hope you well in the chat. Easy win. I'm joking. That will be a tough game. I think if I'm looking at those run of fixtures, I'm looking at certainly West Ham. That's going to be a really, really tough game. West Ham, Spurs at home, Man United away. I'm looking at those three fixtures and I'm going, they're going to be tough. But if I'm looking at all the other fixtures, I'm thinking we have got more than enough to win these games. Brentford, you're going back at their stadium, at the GTEC Community Stadium, as it says on there. They're normally pretty good at their stadium, but even so, we've won there the last two seasons. So, like for us, like we should be confident going there, and even if we don't, I think there's still enough wins in those remaining fixtures for us to get Europe. Even without Sven Botman, we've got Jamal Lascelles coming back in, who last time came in and did a fantastic job in deputising for him. You know, you've got other players as well that are potentially coming back. Nick Pope should hopefully be back by the end of April, or sort of mid to end of April. As Dave said, massive miss him not being in the sticks. So you're bringing those players back. Callum Wilson's potentially going to be back beginning of May, end of April. Joe Linton, a similar position. So we could actually finish the season with some of our better players, some of our big players back in the team. And that maybe could be able to tip us there. So I'm still confident.
How many do we lose along the way, Pete? Because it's been every game, every second game we lose another one. That's the only thing. And we only have one striker, Isaac. Touch wood, that he doesn't get injured, you know.
Well, we've got for the West Ham game, we've got Trippier coming back from his calf injury. We've got Barnes back from his hamstring injury. Who else? I think there's one other. I think we might have one other back from Tino Livramento. He had an ankle injury against Chelsea. He's going to be back. So there's 3 big players coming back into the team there. Trippier, with his experience, he's a vice captain. You add those other players. I just think there's enough there to get to Europe. But again, we haven't really talked about it, and probably haven't got time to now. But hopefully, if one of the top 6 teams wins the FA Cup, it might well open up 8th place, because if we get the coefficient 5th place for the Champions League, it just gives us an even better chance of picking up Europe.
A good question here, Pete. It comes from Toon Gamer. What player from Newcastle would the panel take for their team, and why? Who do you need, lads? Dave, we'll go to you first.
I'm torn between Botman and Isak, because I think we've been desperately crying out for a striker. God bless Antonio, but he's 34 now. You know, his age is catching up with him. And I think Isak has got potential to be probably the second best number 9. I think if we could agree Haaland is probably on his own planet. He's probably got the potential to be the best striker in the Premier League, not named Erling Haaland. But we're so shaky defensively. Zuma runs with a limp. Mavropanos and Aguerd can be world-class centre-halves on their day, but are very prone to risks. And Mavropanos, can't pass the ball to save his life. And Ugbona's about 44, I think, now. So I'm torn between that. I'll go for Isak. I can't moan about him always being negative and then pick a defender. So I'm going to go Alexander Isak.
Right.
I will go the same. I'd go with Isak too, because there's so many chances. Even though we score more goals now under Gary O'Neill, there's so many chances where you've got Neto on a break and he's the only one there. And we've always, obviously we had it with Jimenez, obviously then he had his injury. We've always just needed a striker to just stay in the box. That is all you need, because if you stay in the box, you're going to get the service from everywhere. So it'd be Isak for me. I think we get a load more goals. I think the service he'd get at Wolves would be sensational. And I think he'd secure us a lot of points. So, yeah, I'd definitely go with Isak.
Cool. Maybe quick fire ones, lads. Question from Johnny Toon for Life. Question for the lads. Which away day do you enjoy the most? Obviously, before the game starts. Dave, we'll go to you again.
Well, before the game starts, I enjoy all of them. It's normally after the final whistle. I'm miserable.
Yeah, I thought it was Ian Napa. You're like we were talking Premier League though.
Oh yeah, all right, yeah, good. Yeah. So we'll go with Larnaca then. We'll go with any Europeans always play in the Premier League. Off the top of the head, I'm going to go for. Do you know? I've got a little affection for Everton. I really like Goodison Park as a ground, so I'll say Everton. I'll go Goodison Park.
And that was Dave. You don't want to say Everton on this show. You can't say Everton.
I love it.
Chris will love that. Our resident Everton fan. Tom, how about you?
Tough question. Trying to think. I'd probably say one of the Manchester clubs, to be honest. Either United or City. I think, Manchester is a city. There's a lot about, a lot of people, good vibes pretty much. And sometimes we get a good result there too. So I'll probably go with Manchester. Either side.
I'll take City over United. It's something about Old Trafford. It's a decaying cesspit of a ground filled by a decaying cesspit of people.
You're back in, Dave. You're going full swing now. I love it.
Back in the game.
Right. Let's go. There's one specific question for each of you. Right, we'll go to you first, Tom. Let's go to the question from Foxy. Question for Tom. Fabio Silva, worst signing ever made by Wolves?
Right. If I was to answer this question, this stream would be running for about 4 hours.
Break your record, Pete.
Awful signing. 35 million for a kid who had barely played first team football. Mendes, a lot to do with it. Doesn't want to be here, pretty much. He's done well on loan spells, and a lot of Wolves fans have this sense where we really want him to do well, but some players just aren't made for the Premier League. You can go to the Belgian league, go to the German league. You've got more space on the ball. You've got more time. He's doing well in Scotland. He's doing okay, but he's scoring goals when they're 4-0 up. Do you know what I mean? The defenders are tired. He's not scoring goals where it's to win games, really. It's not those edging moments. But yeah, definitely one of the worst signings we've ever made. 100%.
Dave, for you, that's a question from two gamers. I've put up a lot of two gamers questions. To the West Ham panelists, that's you, Dave. Why do you think Ward-Prowse didn't get in the England squad?
He's not good enough. It's that simple. I think there was a case for him in the September-October internationals. He came in. He was full of energy. His set pieces were on point. Yeah. He was a threat. And Jordan Henderson and Calvin Phillips got called up. And at the time, I was like, I don't see how you can call up a guy that isn't getting games at Man City. I mean, would you want an experienced, unused sub? Like, there's no benefit to having that in the England squad. And Ward-Prowse is early. October onwards, probably to the start of March, maybe middle of March, I thought he just fell off. Every corner, cleared the last man. Didn't clear the first man. Every corner, every free kick, just he's going high, wide, and handsome. The energy kind of dried up a little bit. He was getting in the way more than he was making himself available. It wasn't merited. And to be fair, though, I would still say his place in England squad's more merited than Calvin Phillips. I mean, if we're going to talk about Fabio Silva being a bad signing, Calvin Phillips he's probably the worst loan signing I've seen at West Ham. And I've seen random Brazilians that only play 30 minutes.
I'm not going to lie. I'm glad he's your bad signing and not ours, because we were odds on to get him. And the loan the overall deal was rumored to be anywhere between 10 and 12 million, like all in, which is just crazy for a 6-month loan. But yeah, it doesn't look like it's gone well at all. It doesn't even look like there's. I don't know about you, Dave, because you watch him more than me, but just in the games that I've seen, it looks like the motivation's gone with the player. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, the problem is you always want to be signing players on their way up in their career. You never want to sign a player on their way down. I mean, it's all right if Calvin Phillips goes back to Leeds, there's emotional attachment. Leeds at that point in the Championship are like, bloody hell, we got Calvin back or whatever. They go through the roof. They're really excited. If you're going to come in at West Ham, like, you need to hit the ground running, because there's no point bringing in a player on a 6-month loan who's going to take. I mean, we're now end of March, and he still doesn't look like he's up to speed. He still doesn't look like he's Premier League match fit. Yeah. It was a complete waste of money, and it's not money we can afford. Let's be fair. We're not, we're not a cash rich club. we can spend some of the TV money and we can sell. We can spend like the Declan Rice money, but we're not a club that this summer will go and spend another 100 million. I don't think, and you can't be wasting. I mean, this is the problem as well. Is that apparently we've got an option to buy for like 40 million. If you believe the rumours, you can't spend 40 million on your transfer budget on a player that isn't hitting any kind of form for you. When you're West Ham, if you're Man City, you can spend it. You can spend £40 million on a player and stick him in your under 23s. You can't. We can't do it. We're not that kind of club. And it's just been. He came here to use as a fat camp, and I don't think he's even using that. To be honest,
I think it's fair.
Cheers, lads. I'm going to stop the questions there. I'm just going to give a quick shout out to the sponsors as well. Shout out to theradiatorshed.com and Russ and his Rads. Go check out the website for the latest and greatest. You've seen the pictures before. That's the best place to get what is new. Also, shout out to H2O Bathroom Design Co. And again, go check out the websites for the best pictures and call into them. Guys as well. Make sure you mention Loaded and you'll get a discount as well. So check that out. I don't have the picture for what's up for on Tuesday, but we're back with another Talking Tune on Tuesday, and we're joined by the Geordie Journo. So interesting to have the lads back, and we'll be talking about a lot, especially one little thing that's coming up here and on Friday. The days are counting down to it now because we are in Newcastle on this coming weekend up for the West Ham game, but we're the charity match on the Friday at 3 p.m. in Forest Hall. So if you happen to be in the area, come and join us. I know Lisa said it as well, and she's going along. So come and join us and say hello. And just remember, we won't recognize you, but you might recognize us. Also, if you would like to donate, the link is there to donate, and we're trying to reach our target. We're getting there. Do a little help getting up towards our target for that matter against Newcastle Fans TV. But that's it for the promos. Pete, back to you.
Definitely. Look, it's been an absolute pleasure to have the panel on tonight. The likes of Adam and Don that have been on before, previously. But I have to say, Dave, Tom, you guys have been absolutely spot on. Your first time on the panel, first time on the channel. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you guys on. Just plug where we can find you guys on socials and channels that you're associated to. Dave, start with you.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. My username's on the screen at Official Big Dave. I host a West Ham podcast called Hammers Pod, and I do fan cams to West Ham Fan TV.
Top man. And
yes, thanks for having me on. Firstly, but so as I've tagged in there, Tom Talks Footy. That's on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and then on X, it's Tom Gibson Journo because I couldn't do Tom Talks Footy. But, yeah, really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me on.
No, pleasure to have both you on. And look, we'll be in touch, and we'll definitely get you back in again for another chat, maybe a week or two's down the line. See how the fixtures and the results pan out, and we'll get back talking again and see where it is. We'll assess where we're at. That's for sure. But look, a few people have mentioned it in the chat. Thank you for all your support with the channel. The channel is growing, and we're really proud to see the channel growing. Even tonight, we've had a load of new subs to the channel, 8,000 and up. Next target, we'll set it
10K.
The seeds. Okay, there you go. 10K. Already been said. But look, we're not finished here, guys and girls. We're lots of more content, and we have fantastic guests like these boys just below us on the screen to come and join us again. But absolute pleasure, and thank you to everyone in the chat. There's only one thing to say, Daz, isn't there?
There is. How'd you like that? Good night, everyone.
How you like